honor of speaking this evening. I believe it's the fourth time the rabbi has asked me to speak at a Yom Hashoa event. I do thank the rabbi for that. It's kind of mixed emotions for me today because I'm coming from a wedding in Yom Hashoa and going to bar mitzvah, so I'm somewhat emotional here today. As the rabbi indicated, I am the child of survivors. While this may not give me any special status, I constantly remind my children that they are the grandchildren of 4 Holocaust survivors and should wear this yichus as a badge of honor. This evening I would like to discuss 2 rabbis. I'm the president, spoke to a few rabbis. I'd like to speak about 2 rabbis in particular. I'm in the midst of reading a book called Out of the Depths by Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau, himself a Holocaust survivor, former chief rabbi of Israel, and currently chief rabbi of Tel Aviv. I highly recommend this book to all of you. It's brought me to tears many times, and I'm only halfway finished. Rabbi Lau's experiences in the Holocaust are basically his only childhood memories. Between the age of 5 and 8, he lost a brother, both his parents, his innocence, and temporarily inner peace, as every day was a struggle to survive. Rabbi Lau goes into great detail describing the inhumane treatment he and his brother Naftali experienced. His most painful memory is being ripped from his mother's hands during the train selectia with an abrupt goodbye, never to be seen again. That trauma remains with him until today. He miraculously survived multiple life and death moments, saved by intentional and unintentional angels, both Jewish and non-Jewish, including a Russian non-Jew who protected him daily in Buchenwald and in fact wanted to adopt him and take him back to Russia after the war. I'd like to read you a brief passage from his book which describes his liberation as an 8-year-old, having survived 3 years of horror in Buchenwald. These are Rabbi Lau's words. I remember the American soldiers entering the camp gates. Later I learned that they were part of the 6th Armored Division of General George S. Patton's 3rd Army. I recall their expressions when they caught sight of the faces of the Muslim men, gaunt as scarecrows in their striped uniforms, the bodies and the rivers of blood from those caught in the hailstorm of bullets. With their remaining ammunition, the departing Germans had shot everyone in their path. I saw the American soldiers freeze in place, shocked into silence. I was also frozen, petrified of the new army that had entered the camp gates. I did not know whether they were for us or against us, so I hid behind the piled bodies. The chaplain of the U.S. 3rd Army was Rabbi Herschel Schachter, who just passed away a few weeks ago. He later became the chairman of presidents of major American Jewish organizations. In full army uniform, Rabbi Schachter got down from his feet and stood before the pile of bodies. Many of them were still bleeding, some groaned in pain. Suddenly, he thought he saw a pair of eyes, wide open and alive. He panicked and with a soldier's instinct drew his pistol. Slowly, carefully, he began to circle the pile of bodies. Then, and this I recall clearly, Rabbi Lau says, he bumped into me, a little boy staring at him from behind the mound of corpses, wide-eyed. His face revealed his astonishment. In the midst of this killing field, in that sea of blood, suddenly a child appears. I did not move, but he knew that no child in this place could be anything but Jewish. He holstered his pistol and grabbed me with both hands and caught me in a fatherly embrace. Lifting me in his arms, in Yiddish, with a heavy American accent, he asked me, "Wie alt bist du, mein Kind? How old are you, my boy?" I saw tears dripping from his eyes. Still, through the force of habit, I answered cautiously, like someone perpetually on guard. "What difference does it make? At any rate, I'm older than you." He smiled at me from behind his tears and asked, "Why do you think that you're older than I am?" Without hesitating, Rabbi Lau replied, "Because you laugh and cry like a child, and I haven't laughed for a long time. I can't even cry anymore. So which one of us is older?" Then he introduced himself to me in the tone of our conversation. Easy. Rabbi Schachter asked who I was. "Lulek from Pietrkov," I replied. "And who is your family?" he inquired. "My father was the rabbi of Pietrkov." "And you were here all alone without your father?" "Without my father, without my mother, but I have a brother. He collapsed and is lying sick here in the camp." Rabbi Schachter gained my full when he told me that he heard of my father. He had also heard of my father's cousin, Rabbi Meir Shapiro, the rabbi of Berlin, who had initiated the Daf Yomi, daily faith program of Talmud study, I was thrilled. Then the American rabbi took me by the hand, and together we made the rounds of the barracks, announcing the liberation. We entered some of them together, others he entered alone. I remember the people lying inside with blank stares, without even the strength to get up from their bunks. These people were not among those who could run the camp, gave and shout hooray with the rest. Jews, you are liberated, called out the American rabbi in Yiddish. The inmates gazed at them, incredulous, as if to ask, who is this crazy Meshiggah standing here in uniform, screaming in Yiddish? Indeed, it was a strange, unrealistic sight. The prisoners lay emaciated and prone on wooden planks, while before them stood Rabbi Herschel, upright and strong, a messenger of redemption. These Jews were like the dying embers plucked from the fire that the prophet Zechariah describes. And again, I would just sincerely recommend that you pick up this book. You will thank me after you read this book. The other rabbi that I would like to briefly discuss this evening is Rabbi Chaim Oshry. Rabbi Chaim Oshry was just 27 years old when the local Lithuanians attacked the Jewish neighborhood of Slobodka and went from street to street, torturing and butchering every Jewish man, woman, or child they encountered. That night, June 25th, 1941, was the beginning of the end of Lithuania. And an image Rabbi Oshry could never forget, and whose lesson always strove to fulfill, was that of the shamus of the Slobodka Yeshiva of Gershon, who, with his throat split, pleaded to his fellow Jews, children, when you are free, tell about our suffering in hell. Rabbi Oshry, who had studied under the most renowned Torah sages, was one of the few rabbinical authorities for the Jews seeking the Torah's answers for their heart-wrenching questions throughout the war. Rabbi Oshry hoped to one day show the world how his fellow Jews thought, felt, and behaved in the most inhumane of circumstances. When asked a question, he would write the details on scraps of paper along with the responses he provided. He then hid these papers in cans which were buried in the ground of the concentration camp near Kovno. Rabbi Oshry miraculously survived the war. However, his beloved wife and children were murdered in the concentration camps. He later remarried to a woman who herself was a survivor of Auschwitz. After the war, Rabbi Oshry unearthed the hidden cans and then painstakingly reviewed each and every question with the Torah text, as his original answers were based solely on memory. Once properly researched, he then compiled a 5-volume work in Hebrew of the responses, titled Shiloh Teshuvot Mimamkim, Questions and Answers from the Depths. This was later translated into a 1-volume work titled Responsive from the Holocaust. And actually, I did look up to purchase this volume. You can go actually on eBay or Amazon. It must be out of print. Buy this volume now, about $800 or $900. Soon after the war, Rabbi Oshry founded the Yeshiva American Hagolah in Rome for orphan refugee children who had survived the Holocaust. After moving to New York, he served as president of an organization of rabbis who survived the concentration camps. Rabbi Oshry passed away on Rosh Hashanah in 2003 at the age of 89, leaving behind his wife, 3 daughters, and 6 sons. I'd like to read you 2 of the questions, actually 3 of the questions that were asked of Rabbi Oshry in the camps. And I apologize in advance because this may not be so easy to listen to, but these are real life and death questions actually asked of Rabbi Oshry. I was asked, this is the Shiloh, this is the question asked of Rabbi Oshry. I was asked to render a halakhic decision on the following problem. A boy whose leg the German had amputated lay in the hospital. Wishing to pray daily to his Creator, he sent a request through Jewish channels that a pair of tefillin be sent into the hospital. A persistent rumor in the ghetto claimed that the Germans burned every patient's personal possessions upon his death or dismissal. Knowing what might happen to the tefillin, was it still permissible to send a pair into the hospital? Rabbi Oshry's response, I ruled that the tefillin might be sent to the lab so that he could fulfill the Torah's commandment. The story of the Germans burning personal effects was an unsubstantiated rumor, one of many produced by the fear that reigned in the ghetto. If we had known it to be a fact, I definitely would have forbidden sending him the tefillin, but rumor alone was not enough to deprive that child from praying the tefillin. They were sent through a trustworthy emissary who gave them secretly to the boy away from German eyes. I also felt that the tefillin would be an inspiration to the boy, a recent Baal Tshuva who had changed his life around from non-observance to observance. Dr. Davidovich, who worked in the hospital, testified to the boy's immense joy when he donned the tefillin for the first time.